I don't even know why I'm doing this live online. It's raining outside and I have nothing else to do except talk to people online. It's kind of crazy. My wall is jacked, so let's go ahead and change this lighting setup real quick. How about we do that? It's a good thing about having a studio. You can kind of just put things where you want them to be. Looking shiny in the face. How about that? What's up, everybody? One person. So today, I'm going to be talking about finding style confidence. It has a lot to do with what I've learned out here. But first, I have to give a, straight up why I've taken a kind of like a hiatus. Um, and why I've taken a break from not just posting, but fashion in general. So let me go ahead and give that disclaimer before we go on to finding style confidence. One of the reasons was I became disillusioned. Good day, mate. I became kind of disillusioned and cynical about fashion recently, within the last month or so, and I think it's mainly due to the fact that as of right now, the casual is growing a little bit, and I'm getting a lot of commentary from the peanut gallery, as it were, um, and really a lot of people who are new and maybe they've never seen what we do here at the casual, um, and how we approach this thing that we all like called fashion. And unlike some other channels that are out there, maybe other blogs or Instagram accounts or whatever, what have you, we don't like to show you. We don't. I mean, I live in Japan and my team is based in Japan, so we don't like to show you fake Japan. And what I mean by that is uh, the whole idea that when it comes to fashion, Japanese people wear these crazy outfits, and you know they're always looking like they're on some type of couture runway show. Um, and our whole thing is the name of the channel is The Casual, right? So I feel the need to like repeat this every time we go through like a new kind of referendum, is that it's the casual. It's to showcase what everyday people wear, what people who enjoy fashion, but what they wear on a regular basis, not the stuff that you've seen from some other accounts out there. And I think that this, because I thought when making this channel, I thought that that kind of led to um, this kind of like mystification of Japan, this misrepresentation that Japanese people are somehow these kind of weird, quirky people, and they always wear these weird, quirky outfits. And that is the most interesting thing. And we'll talk about that when I go over the defense of Japanese fashion. But I became disillusioned by this because everybody's expectation is that Japanese people are somehow the most fashionable people on earth because they have this fashion bravery. But really, in my opinion, after living here for several years, my opinion of Japanese fashion is based primarily on the aspect of them having an effortless approach to fashion. And what I mean by that is that, oops, I'm dropping stuff. You can see the back of my computer there. Wow, should put this on a tripod if anything. Anyway, um, just this kind of idea of the effortlessness of being able to wear something and being able to put that thing together every day. So we'll get into that. And it's part of my style judo philosophy in finding confidence. But this is the biggest reason why I was just like, I'm not really sure if, people are getting it. What are some messaging? What are some things that I can say, can do, can get across to get to people? Like, hey, when you come here, you're gonna get, hopefully you get the unexpected, you get the real life. We don't go around in, like, I'm from the United States, but when we show fashion, when we show fashion in New York, like we assume that like the best fashion in New York, we don't assume that everybody in America dresses like that. In fact, it's much better if we get a sense of how everyday people dress. This is where you get streetwear. This is where you get street fashion or contemporary or whatnot. That's where the real fashion lies. In my mind, the real fashion lies with people, not what you see in the glamorous tabloids and and fashion magazines. And this is where we start this idea of fashion confidence and how you can build it. And I think that me coming to Japan helped me really solidify my belief that the Japanese, in most cases, have kind of perfected this idea of, I think somebody already said, I saw your comment, this idea of effortless chic, right? And when people tend to see it, they tend to think that it's boring or tame or not enough. And in my opinion, that is a very, I don't want to be too frank because it may come off the wrong way, but in my opinion, it's a very limited view. It's a very limited view of how to approach fashion. The best way to approach fashion is something that, in my opinion, style, I should say. The best way to approach style is something that you can put together every day that you feel comfortable in that makes a statement that you are trying to make. All right. So something that you can pull off every day, a style, a format that you can pull off every day that you're confident it's totally you and it totally is, put together well. You wear what you want, but wear it well is the philosophy that I go for like 99% of the time. So it's not about wearing it should be the effortlessness that you put into go into the grocery store. Your style should shine through even at the grocery store, even if it's something that you just put on just to go to like the convenience store. Like your closet should be filled with things. Even your relaxed wear should be, in my opinion, should be reflective of you, right? So uh, that's how I see it. So for me in particular, finding style confidence was all about saying, hey, what would I wear if I'm just going to pick something up? So my comfort clothes need to look need to be in the same kind of home, in the same kind of philosophy, methodology, um, as the clothes that I wear out to go do a certain activity. They should not be the same as far as the quality or at least the approach, but the methodology needs to be the same. And the reason why I say this is because when building style confidence, having something that you can rely on is always the key. And we look at this in every other fact of life. In every other fact of life, we count on consistency. We count on it. Fashion is one of those few things where, at least in the West, in that the perspective out West, and I'll tell you why that is in a second. The perspective out West is to have multiple things in your closet or multiple styles, several styles, but in every other facet of your life, you rely on consistency. You rely on something happening in a persistent and consistent way so you are not blindsided by certain things. And when you are blindsided, what are you? Upset. You get thrown off course. You can't go about your day the correct way. But it seems and if you look at people who have multiple styles, think about this. If you're a person that has multiple styles and you go into your closet on any particular day, unless you're the type of person that puts their clothes out the day before, how long does it take for you to go into your closet and be like, what am I going to wear today? And guess what you end up doing? That's what most people end up doing, because I worked in fashion, worked with stylists for a long time. What most people end up doing is they end up going to their closet and they pick out clothes that they normally wear. They what we call their essentials, right? They're confident that they know it looks good. They know it's fine. They know how they look in it. They've gotten good response from it. They feel good in it. It speaks to them and they don't have to think about it. It's only the times where if you're looking at your closet for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes at a time, trying to figure out what exactly to wear, to me, that means that you have in my opinion, you have a haphazard closet, a haphazard closet, and you don't really know what direction to take. And this leads to less confidence, but it also leads to the simple fact that it's very likely that you are following trends, right? It's very likely that you're following trends if you have a haphazard closet. It's very likely that you have clothes that you don't want to wear anymore because it's not on trend. It's very likely that you don't want to wear that because somebody might call you out for being like, oh, you're so 2016, 2018, 2019. This is what we do it now, right? It's very likely that you're engaging in fashion not because it's something that you genuinely like, but it's something that you like on somebody else. I remember that. It's not something that you genuinely like, it's something that you like on somebody else. So how do you build your own personal? So basically it's like, I like stuff that other people are doing. Therefore, if it's popular, I don't mind putting on because I know there's already a justification in it. Now, does that mean that you shouldn't experiment? I 100% agree with experimentation, especially when you're young, right? Because you don't have to spend a lot of money on fashion when you're younger. Seriously, like when you're younger, between the ages of, I'd say, when you have the money, let's just say like you're 16, 17, between the ages of 16 and maybe 25, experimenting, finding yourself within style is perfectly fine. I don't have any problem with that. But as you might notice as you get older, you'll begin to just stick with something. You're gonna do it anyway. You're gonna stick with something anyway. You're just gonna be like, it's too much to think about all these different things. You'll end up staying on something that you feel most comfortable in. So you'll eventually get there anyway. My whole thing is that getting people to a point where they're confident in what they end up choosing. So whatever it is that they end up choosing, they're confident in that. And how we build that is it inextricably tied to what we think of ourselves, right? So here's the biggest thing about fashion, at least from a Western perspective, and what I found is that the biggest reason why there's not a lot of style confidence in a lot of people out west is, one, Westerners in particular, and I'm a Westerner, so I'm going to put myself in that category as well, tend to be incredibly competitive, right? Incredibly competitive. And what I mean by that is that Westerners are always concerned about what others may think of them when they put something on, right? Not always, not everybody, but there's a contingent of people who care about what other people think of them when they put something on, which is why we have this ridiculous problem of brand loyalty, where individuals will, if I say I don't like a brand, and said person likes the brand that I don't necessarily like, they'll assume that if they wear that brand, I won't like their outfit. But I've been on record saying 1,001 times, hey, if you wear a brand that I don't like, but you wear it well, I actually will be the first one to compliment you. Like, I don't necessarily dig the brand, the aesthetic of the brand Bape, right? We've talked about Bape before. Most people who've been on here for a long time know that I'm not really a big fan of the brand. However, I've seen people wear the label and put it together well, where I'm like, oh, that looks nice. Because style is not about the brands. I know you've heard this before. Style is not about the brands. It's about how you put it together, right? So if you put it together well, then I have absolutely no problem with that. But when you start thinking that you are the brand, oh, I don't like brand, I don't like X brand, so therefore I don't like anything that you put on, it means, and if you get upset by that notion, then it basically means that you are acting as a proxy for the brand. The brand is wearing you. You believe that the brand is wearing you. It's kind of socially increase your worth in your own mind rather than you adding to the brand. And so that's where I think the confidence must come in. The value in style is not with the clothes, Okay, let me say that one more time. The value in style is not with the clothes. The value in style is 100% you. 100%. You can wear not one brand. You can go to a thrift store. You can go to a fast fashion. I don't, promote that, but you can go to a fast fashion shop. You can go anywhere that you want to. You can go to independent labels. You can do anything that you want to. You could support anything. But the value in style has nothing to do with the brands that you choose, has everything to do with what you want to do. Everything is you. So when you put something together, I can be inspired by it, even if it's a brand that I don't like. Say, if somebody wore Bape in a way that I've never seen before, I'm not going to be like, man, I don't like Bape, so it's trash. Because here's the second part about gaining confidence in style. The second part about gaining confidence in style is that we have to understand that style is a learning process. That's all it is. It's just a learning process. Learning about yourself, learning about how clothes work, learning how to put things together, learning how you as a person want to express yourself through clothing. That's it. That's it. So style is about you, and style is a learning process. And everybody knows this instinctively. They know this, but they act like they don't know it. And that's why it becomes a competition, because what I learn doesn't resonate with what I see. So therefore, since I don't understand it, I can't appreciate what I might gain from it. Since I don't understand it, I can't appreciate what I might gain from it. This is a very, very terrible premise to start with, especially when it comes to style and fashion. What you don't understand is exactly what you probably should be looking at, because that will give you more insight. That will give you more insight into what else can I do? Because that should always be the question when it comes to your style. How far can I push this idea that I have for myself? How far can I push this style thing? I wasn't privy to this before, but now I am privy to it. How do I get more insight into this thing? That, to me, is the most important aspect of it. It's not about competition. It's not about looking at somebody and saying, I don't like what they're wearing because it does not resonate with me. The first question in my mind that I ask, if I don't like a style, the very first thing that I do is I ask the question, why don't I like this style? What is it about it that I don't like? And over time, as I continue to ask that question, I realized that it wasn't style that I dislike. I didn't dislike any style. Really, it just doesn't resonate with me. And that's fine, because every individual is different. We know that just about being human. So finding style confidence is just being human. Embracing that you're different. Embracing that normal isn't normal at all. And I think that this is the problem that we run into, is the desire to be a part of a group. And that's fine. There's people who have very similar styles. There's people who have dissimilar styles. But the desire to be part of a group, the desire to be accepted, reigns supreme over a lot of ideas. That desire to be accepted, to be a part of the main group, to be a part of a movement, to live vicariously through said group, becomes the biggest factor in determining how you want to present yourself. The group does this, so I'm gonna do this. This is where we get mainstream fashion, right? Mainstream ideas, trend ideas. The group is doing this, so I want to be a part of that. Sub Jacob. So I want to be a part of that. My thing is that in order to gain style confidence, you have to be okay with not knowing who your group is if you can't find it yet. I like this. I like this thing. Half of you who enjoy Japanese fashion, you already know that you're probably different than most of your peers. There's not a lot of people out there who really intensely will research Japanese fashion. It's a very niche group. I know because we've been running this channel for a long time, exclusively talking mostly about Japanese fashion. And guess what? It's a niche group. There's a few 100,000 out there, which is fantastic. But there's also a contingent of people who are on the periphery that like it, but don't necessarily understand it. So they'll come up with things like, oh, Japanese fashion was really good in the 2000s, but it's not as good as it was in the 2000s. And then I have to come out of the woodwork, because a Japanese person is not going to do it. I have to come out of the woodwork and say, actually, what you were fed in the 2000s because of the lack of communication, the lack of what we have now, as far as, social media, the presence of information and how it gets disseminated over time. What you were fed in the past is what was the most mystical, the most eyeshadow, the eye candy, if you were. But if you actually were on the ground in Japan during the 2000s, you will see that it's not much different than what you see today. It's not much different than people just wearing things that are effortless rather than going out of their way to wear something that was fantastic. And so our whole idea is to present that effortlessness so you don't have to. This is a big part of this style confidence conversation. You don't have to wear something fantastic all the time to be considered fashionably loud, or at least knowledgeable about what you're doing. It's all about knowing how to put it together all the time, rather than just that one day I'm going out and I'm a stunt today. It should always be, I'm wearing what I want, I know how to put it together, and the only thing that I'm doing with my style is I'm allowing myself to be inspired. Is there a way for me, I like that thing. Is there a way for me to include that somehow into what it is that I want to present for myself? Is there a way for me to somehow find a piece that resonates with me that is part of that? For example, I like jewelry, right? A good friend, Jacob, is not a fan of jewelry like I am, but I like jewelry. I like rings, I like necklaces, and things of that nature. Around the time that Chrome Hearts was huge, right? Everybody's getting into it, but I don't like Chrome Hearts that much. I don't really like the aesthetic of Chrome Hearts. I don't like, the imagery. I don't like the skulls, the crosses. It's not really my cup of tea. But there is a brand here in Japan called Jam Homemade. They're also a jewelry maker, and they make things like binary code rings, or they'll make, like, they have this silver 928 925 lightsaber ring, which I really love. I'm a big fan of Star Wars. They also have some feather rings, things that kind of resonate with me. And I was just like, wow, it has that kind of aesthetic, but it's more my speed. It's something that I enjoy, rather than just gravitating immediately towards Chrome Hearts. I can indulge in this label that's very personal to me. I like jewelry, but I don't want to wear that jewelry. I want to wear something that's like this, that speaks to me. So now I'm not necessarily following a trend. I kind of am, but I'm following it in the way that I want to express myself. Now, when somebody comes up to me and they see one of my rings, they're like, yo, man, where did you get that? Like, where did you find that? What brand is that? And that's where you get that brand ID on that, because people are seeing something that resonates with them, but they haven't searched for it. So, was that first thing that I said about finding style confidence? It's 100% about you, right? 2, the other thing about style confidence is you have to know it's a learning process. Everybody knows this. The learning process is the biggest part about style confidence. And and knowing that you can be inspired by things that you don't necessarily indulge in. And the third thing about style confidence, and my final thing about finding style confidence, is allow yourself to put the time in and discover things. So you have to search, right? You have to search. You have to search for things. You have to be willing to say, F what I know. Let's get into what I don't. Okay, F what I know. Let's get into what I don't know. And the minute that you do that, I promise you, the minute that you stop saying, I don't care about what I know, I already know this stuff. Because what ends up happening with the stuff that you know, you end up relying on it too often. So you say, oh, they didn't make a shirt like this season. I'm just waiting for them to make a shirt. Right? I'm just waiting for them. I'm just waiting for this brand to do what I want them to do. You're going to be waiting a long time. Right? You're going to be waiting for that over-reliance on the stuff that you know to create the things that you need means that you are overly dependent on a brand. Whereas I'm using my own experience because I know some of you out there probably already do this, but in my own experience, what I do is I say, well, if this brand doesn't have what I need, even though it's a brand that I follow, I'm looking for something else that might do it. Because for me, it's not about the brand, it's about the piece. That's why I say style is a learning process, and it's all about you. And when I say style is a learning process, it's not simply finding clothes that kind of fit your aesthetic. It's more about learning fashion. A big part of style is learning fashion in general. If you know fashion, then your style will exponentially increase. And when I say know fashion, it's not I know fashion, I look at the fashion shows, I read Hypebeast, I read, Complex, I know what's coming out. That's not knowing, that's knowing the news, right? That's news. News is totally different than knowing fashion. When I say know fashion, understand how fabrics work. Understand the grade of a weave, right? Understand what properties, right? Understand what properties each fabric has. Understand the heft, understand the weight, understand the drape, understand the movement, understand the breathability, understand the mechanics. Because once you understand those things, it's so much easier to find exactly what you want. And so you won't start thinking of brands, you'll start thinking of pieces. And that right there is powerful. When you supersede the whole brand idea and you start thinking of pieces, that's where discovery comes into play. Right? That's where discovery comes into play. Where you stop thinking about what brand is that and you start thinking about, I'm looking for a piece that has this. I'm looking for a piece that has this. I'm looking for a hemp woven linen pants, right? That are stiff enough for me to roll up to my ankles, but have enough drape and movement for me to have this movement, to have this kind of movement. So once you start thinking about those kind of things, the process of finding things becomes so much easier and you begin to discover more. It stops becoming like this zero-sum game. Like, oh, I need these shorts that are like, I need these new shorts that this brand did because this provides me with this kind of style, even though it's not 100% what I want. And that's when anybody asks me about my clothes, I'm like, dude, like I found this from some brand out here in Japan that nobody's talking about. Why? You probably never heard of it, but I found it because this is what I wanted. This is the piece that I wanted, not the brand. I didn't care about the brand. The brand was of no consequence. The brand did not matter to me. Only that they had a piece that I needed. They had the garment that I needed to fulfill a slot in my wardrobe. So that's a big thing. Like learning fashion and how things move, studying runways, that can only give you more insight. So this is the biggest reason why I showcase uh, if I'm showcasing fashion, hello, Sakuragi-kun. um, if I'm showcasing fashion, um, it's not to showcase, oh, this is amazing. Like I might, we might give you the good old, clickbait title, but it really is to give you insight so you can learn from it. This is what this entire process at The Casual is like, is to give people confidence that you can wear something every day and it makes sense for you. And it can be effortless, right? It could be an effortless process, and it could be an enjoyable process. I find searching for fashion an enjoyable process. And in fact, it could be just like a rabbit hole that I jump into, right? It could just be like, oh my gosh, I'm looking for this particular piece. And sometimes you're happily surprised about the results that you get. And that's where I find the most confidence in putting together even simple pieces. Like me, I really like finding simple pieces with fantastic fabric or fantastic movement to them, or have certain properties, and then people look at them, like, especially because a lot of the clothes that I get from Japan, a lot of people from the West will look at them and just be like, yo, where did you get that? Like I've seen that before, but that looks different, Chief. And that really gets me in a mood, because I know it's a learning process, and I can tell this person, like, this is what I found, this is how I found them, right? Rather than, yo, it's this brand. I really don't like telling people, yo, it's this brand, because if I tell them it's this brand, then it just becomes, oh, then I just need to go to that brand for that. I'd much rather give them the spiel on, this is how you find it, right? So yeah, I think a lot of you are, as we're going on, a lot of people are talking about that not caring about what people think thing. And that's a big part of it. But I want you to understand that just like art, right? Just official art in a gallery. Style is not necessarily just about how you want, it's about how you want to present yourself. But you come into it knowing that people will see you, and people will judge you based on what you wear, right? So you know that instinctively. You know that you want to showcase yourself like this, but you know that people are going to have a response to it, especially if it's quite odd, if it's not the normal way of, presenting yourself. It's something that they don't necessarily see. But the whole idea is not just to simply not care, because I think that's the sentiment that it's hard to do. It's not to simply not care. It's to have the confidence that it doesn't matter. You resonate with the people that you want to resonate with. The peanut gallery, yeah, you don't have to care about them. But it resonates with the people that you want to resonate with. That's what's powerful about fashion, is that it can immediately give that sense of what kind of community that you are a part of, right? What community that you're actually a part of. And you can live vicariously through yourself, but also through that community. And the more knowledgeable you come to that style, the more easy it becomes to say, hey, the only thing that matters is how I'm presented to people who appreciate what I'm doing. Right? So yes, this is where we get into this whole idea, and this is why I've kind of combined these two subjects together. Right? Yeah, the true cool people. Right? combine the whole defending Japanese fashion, because I think through the last 2 weeks or so, the casual has grown quite exponentially because of the shorts that we put out showcasing Japanese fashion, which, by the way, abide by Japanese law, but there's been a lot of people say, oh, consent, whatever. So we're going to try something different so we can, at least educate people on this process of fashion in Japan. So, but beyond that, so beyond this whole idea is Japanese fashion, and why I found this out while living in Japan amongst Japanese people. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a history of why I ended up in Japan, just a short one, why I ended up in Japan, why I ended up studying fashion in Japan, and ultimately what I was able to bring to the table to several brands while living in Japan. Not Western brands, but Japanese brands. So the first thing is like why I ended up in Japan. Well, one, I've always had an interest in it, but I actually have a history with Japan that I won't go too far into, but I actually have a history with Japan. So I was able to learn the language quite quickly, and, be able to facilitate in Japanese quicker than the average person. So I always had this interest ever since I was around, I'd say 7, 8 years old. Right. And from that, it grew, it metastasized into wanting to build a career, wanting to build my kind of professional career surrounded with Japanese, tastes and culture. So that brought me to the point right now. And what I've been able to disseminate while living in Japan is that the vast majority of Japanese people, when they get involved in something, they get laser focused on anything. It's not just fashion. You can go with baseball. You can go with video games, right? Some of the best, if you watch video game competitions like Evo Fight, some of the best players in the world are from Japan because they have a new high school in Japan that teaches you how to compete in competitive video games. So that tells you how laser focused Japan can get. They actually have a new school. They have several new schools for skating. As in the Olympics, Japan did amazing in skateboarding. So now they have schools all around Tokyo teaching skateboarding to kids who are like as young as 3 years old. So when Japan sees that they can do something, they are laser focused in that arena, and they train, right? And like I said, it's not just fashion, it's pretty much everything. And it's something that I've tried to adopt as a foreigner living in Japan, is to adopt this idea of becoming laser focused on something. And by and large, I've adopted a lot of it, but that's because I'm naturally obsessive about things. So my character kind of leans into Japanese culture a bit, but also the difference is that I tend to look on things from the outside because I am a foreigner living in a land that I'm not a part of. I'm not a part of the culture intrinsically, right? So for me, looking at this from the outside, knowing that I kind of have this entry point into Japanese culture as far as my character is concerned, it allowed me to see things in a way that many Japanese people see them, but from an outside perspective, right? So what's up? So what ends up happening what did I end up doing in Japan as far as fashion is concerned? Well, one, I helped several labels in Japan kind of reach out west, right? Like I was able to create campaigns for particular Japanese brands to help them reach a Western audience. And that was fun for a time, but one of the things that I realized while working with some of these brands and working with some of these labels is that they were incredibly kind of like draconian and just kind of not backwards, but a little bit slow to adopt certain new things that'll reach out. And one of the things that I always would say is, well, you got to show you, right? Let's not show like Westerners wearing your clothes. Let's show Japanese people wearing them, because that's how people are going to view you. Like they want to view you first, and then maybe you could show like Westerners wearing the clothes so it could show like it's more international, but they want to see you. And I would have this conversation all the time. It's like, do American people or do Westerners really think that Japanese fashion is cool? I'm gonna tell you, like, this is one of the most surprising things. A lot of Japanese don't think that Westerners think that Japanese fashion is a cool thing. A lot of them don't think that. A lot of them just sit there and they're like, how can they like what we do? Right? Like, that doesn't make any sense to us, because they will say, well, we like what they do. Right? We like what they do. And it's not just America, it's Europe, it's part of America, parts of America. But yeah, it's the, UK, French, Berlin, all these different areas where they take a lot of influence from, but they'll sit there and just be like, yeah, we like what they do. And I would tell them, like, yeah, but they like what you do too. Because in Japan, you have a tendency to go 100% of the way. And because of that, you're inspirational as a country when it comes to fashion, right? That's how you became that. So it's best to showcase you. But one of the things that I used to, say all the time was, but it's not the crazy stuff. That you have a bad image from the Western perspective, because there's a lot of obsessive culture when it comes to Japanese culture from a Western perspective, right? So there's these, we call daifan though, like super fans of Japanese popular culture, and particularly when it comes to Japanese anime and things of that nature, Japanese animation and things of that nature, which is really the big key here. So you have this aspect, and that trickled down into everything has to, like, this kind of phantasmic view of Japan when it came to Japanese animation kind of trickled down into everything else. So we could say it started from video games, then it went into Japanese animation, and then it went into like things like fashion, all those kind of things. And so most of the fans who like Japanese fashion are actually coming from that world, that Japanese animation world, that kind of popular culture world that was kind of molded not by the West, but molded by Japan. So what you have to do is you have to somehow, some way, attract people who don't necessarily get down with that all the time, and also re-educate people who have already been involved in those things. Like, Japanese fashion isn't always whimsical. It's actually experimental. It's actually, very intense, right? It's not, cheap, and I hate to say this, but it's not cheap visual K and Lolita clothing all over the place, because it can be cheap. Some of it's expensive, don't get me wrong, but it's not that. It's not the late 90s Gwen Stefani Harajuku girl look all over the place. In fact, you'd be hard pressed to find that today. Hard pressed to find the images of the late 90s, early 2000s Japan here today, right? You'd be hard pressed to find it. But there's still a lot to learn, because there's remnants of that still prevail in Japan. But I think it's really important that we start to look at Japanese fashion and Japanese people, and this is the defense, as people. And I've said this at the onset when we first started this video. We need to start looking at these people as people. And that's why I don't like to show what other channels have shown. Oh, it's gonna stay up. What other channels have shown in regards, or other avenues and other blogs have shown. I don't disagree with them presenting this. So if they end up watching this later, I don't disagree with what they're doing. I don't disagree with the premise, but I disagree with only showing that and not showing the everyday, the effortlessness, because I believe that aspect goes underappreciated and it goes under notice. And so when you see it, when we showcase it, sometimes the reaction can be, oh, well, this is a little tame. This is a little boring. This is not what I expected from Japanese fashion. And my immediate response is, that's because what you've been shown is not the reality. What we really need to appreciate is how they go about the process. Not that they're simply wearing these crazy things. What is the process? What can we learn from the Japanese? And why is Tokyo considered the street fashion capital? Not streetwear, but street fashion capital of the world. Why is it considered that? Well, it's because of the styles on display, but also how easy it is for them to put these things together. It looks like they're just going in their closet and just being like, this, let's go. It doesn't look like they're trying hard. It doesn't look try hard. I go on the streets. I go on the streets of Japan nearly every other day, right? I see this in full view. I'm no longer surprised by it, not even in the slightest. But what it does for me, as a person who involves himself in fashion, who looks at it, I am always impressed by the effortlessness. Always. That's what gets me every single time. And once we realize that it's not a competition, we can learn something from that aspect instead of just oh my gosh, Japanese people, they do such crazy outfits. That reaction is not something that I wanted to portray. I wanted to demystify Japan. That was really what my goal is, as the forerunner of the casual, is to kind of and here's the thing. You don't have to. You can't see myself wearing them baggy jeans. You don't have to. That's the thing. You don't have to. There are plenty of people in Japan who don't wear baggy stuff. It's just the stuff that I'm showing at this moment. There's plenty of people who don't, right? There's plenty of menswear is huge in Japan. Plenty of that stuff. There's plenty of things, punk styles from, way back when. Karasuzoku is still around. So what I'm showing you is almost a lot of the time, I'm just showing you the everyday, what I see on the street. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to apply it. You could see a top that you like. You could see a hat that you like. Maybe it's some glasses. Maybe it's a hairstyle. I don't know what it is. But you have to allow yourself to be inspired by those things. Because if you just look at it from a face value, you'll end up selling yourself short. Because you're looking at fashion from a purely what I do it perspective. And if you stop looking at it like that, it becomes more enjoyable, right? And this is the last thing that I'll hit you with, because I think this really sums up the idea. So I watch a lot of runways, right? Like I watch them a lot. So sometimes I need a break. Like Jacob's on here. I always tell him like, I have to take a break right now. So here's the thing, Olivia, I'll answer that momentarily, but here's the thing. Most people, if you're involved in fashion to any degree, especially if you're involved in like design or luxury fashion, one of the most common questions that you'll hear is like, all this stuff on the runway, right? And I've mentioned this before. Anybody who's been here for a long time knows that I'll bring this up every now and then. They'll ask, who's wearing these actual clothes that are on the runway, right? Like, who's wearing these clothes that are on the runway? Like, these clothes are crazy. Nobody wears this stuff. Now, HK Asian, I decided not to do before I get onto the runway thing, do my train of thought. I decided not to do an Issey Miyake video because the last time that we did this, and I explained this on Instagram just a few hours ago, the last time that we did this for Kenzo, I felt kind of odd about doing it because it felt like I was capitalizing on a moment, but also the reaction to it. I believe Kenzo is one of the most important designers in Japanese history. And we did a video kind of tributing his history, what he's done at WTH on him. And the response to it was like the only thing that people cared about was the clothes that this is the reason why I'm just not a big fan of the brand talk, right? Like brands. It's all the way about the brand. So I didn't want to make a video about Issey Miyake. I really was thinking about this every single day, like up until, a few days ago. I was like, I really wanted to do it, but because I am a big Issey Miyake fan, like major Issey Miyake fan, but I didn't want the reaction to be the only thing that people cared about was his damn pants, where like the damn pants that were designed by Issey Miyake, the brand. And that's all that people would be talking about, or at least referencing Issey Miyake, when he's done so much more, and we also did the Virgil one. And I think every time that these kind of situations happen when somebody passes away, there's a moment that we have to kind of reflect and ask ourselves, am I doing this so I can reach out to people and tell you how important this person was? Or am I doing this because I'm trying to rack up, views, or, I don't want that reaction to be the reaction. So we're going to definitely do an Issey Miyake video, but it's not going to come anytime soon. It'll come at a time that we feel is most appropriate, and really, speaks to what we're trying to accomplish here. We're not trying to get over on people. That's the last thing. That's the last kind of idea that I want to happen here, is that people think that we're trying to get over on somebody's death. It was an important moment, but I decided not to say anything. Just keep it to myself. Yeah. So that's the reason why. So there it goes. So back to this whole things on the runway. And you'll ask the question, why don't these things appear on the run? Why these things that appear on the runway? Who's wearing this stuff that appears on the runway? These things specifically like Tom Brown or it's important, but again, we're going to still do it. But just not now. But, you'll ask that question, those things on the runway, right? The things on the runway that you see, they don't necessarily, especially if it's like a couture runway or experimental runway, it's really just the designer's vision. A lot of the time that you see on that stuff on the runway will never make it to the showroom floor, meaning the sales floor. It'll never make it there. In fact, a lot of the time it'll be a watered down version of what you see on the runway, right? It's a watered down, more palpable version, more tasteful version, not tasteful, but a more approachable version of what you see on the runway. What you see on the runway is the vision, right? Is the vision, the entire artistic vision, because a designer, a fashion designer is, at least in part, artist, right? They start off as artists. I want to do this art. The body is the canvas, and I'm doing it based on this. And they do that, yes, for shock value. They do it for, this presentation. And then they make pieces based off of that. So when you're looking at that, it's to inspire you. It's to have you think differently. That's why I bring up that point. It's not simply who's wearing this. It's, wow, I like this format. I like the materials that they use here. I like the way that they presented this. I like the folds and the way that they, the folds in this garment, how they did that. I'm inspired by that. I see that. And now when you see the piece on display in the showroom floor, it's a watered down version, but maybe you were drawn to how those folds were, and that gets you to buy something. That gets you to buy that particular piece. It's 100% of the time the case, right? It's that it's to inspire you. But when you're purely looking at fashion from what I would wear perspective, you're not going to get that, because there's so many people who are within the fashion apparatus who are thinking fashion is purely a functional thing. Everything needs to be showcased as if it were needed to be worn. Everything. Because then I don't get it. What's the point? What's the drip? Right? I don't see it. Because it's like, It doesn't showcase, like, I'm not going to wear that. I'm not going to wear that. Show me how to wear it. And this goes down that rabbit hole of show me what to wear. Show me how to wear it. Show me how to put it together. Show me how it can make me look better. This is why you have certain YouTube channels. Again, I'm not against them, but that's why you have certain channels that'll tell you the essentials every man should wear, the essentials every girl should wear. Every woman should pick up this. Every guy should pick up this. Every guy needs to have this. Because this whole fashion process is about how you can put together something so you can feel confident in yourself. That's why they teach it like that. And so the problem with teaching it like that and not giving the examples and not really teaching the brevity, the entire breadth of fashion and how it really works, which is something that I hope I can do, and I hope others kind of embrace it as well. The whole problem with just teaching people how to put together clothing or how to put together an outfit is that, one, it creates a lack of individuality and not a lot of experimentation. But two, what it does is it presents fashion as a purely functional means of artistry. Purely functional. It cannot be artistic. It has to be something that people can wear. And that idea is starting to prevail. And it should make those who are involved in like kind of high fashion talk or luxury designer groups scared. Because if all fashion ends up being just, it has to be something that's wearable, then true artistry, true moments of genius, right? If you're going to be absent of that, then there's no innovation. White pants have always been kind of popular, but whatever. That's that thing, like white pants have become popular in Japan, and like they've always been popular. It's like I saw white pants like 10 years ago. So I'm like, since when? Right? Like it's just being showcased more. That's it. Yes, I would say it's more seen, but you know, I've always seen white pants in Japan. So like for me, it's just like this weird thing. Like I've always seen it, but I guess, yeah, it is more common. But that being said, I'm not here to like rain on anybody's parade or anything like that, but and say that you're wrong. You're absolutely right. It's being on display more. But what I'm saying is that true artistry, if we don't have these moments of just pure artistry, just, you know, just coming at fashion in a more artistic way, then we lose out on those moments of genius, those moments of innovation. And that's what a lot of people are complaining about, especially in designer fashion. A lot of people will think that those individuals who are in like high fashion talk is like, oh, they're pompous, they're so, you know, they think they're better than us. I think in defense of people who are in the high fashion designer kind of community, in defense of them, what they're worried about is that if by chance all designers start designing with just function wearing fashion, then we're never going to get to a place where anything evolves. And then everybody's going to start complaining, which is actually happening as we speak. How many of you out there saying everybody's dressing the same? Everybody's dressing the same. Everybody's dressing the same. That is not due to, people in general. There's people who want to experiment. People look at, want to experiment, but now they can't because it's like, I can't find this. Right? Is there a way to start analyzing and so I'll get into QA right now. So there a way to start analyzing runways and as a beginner? Absolutely. Just like you would look at a painting, right? I mean, there are certain things that you're going to be aesthetically drawn to. and there's certain things that you are not. But the only way that you can start understanding um, any type of artistry, is to start asking questions, right? Not simply asking questions to the artist, because sometimes the artist will be incredibly vague, but asking questions to yourself. But in order to understand what those questions are going to be, I would say most people who are in, kind of high fashion discussions are completely uh, knowledgeable about art in it. Like, not completely, but are at least vaguely knowledgeable about art, right? There's certain individuals who are in the high fashion community that pretend to know about art, but really they just know about fashion, right? But those of them that know about art can approach any kind of runway and not say, "Oh, I didn't like it," but more so would be like, "I don't understand the message that they were trying to convey here, but I see the influences where it's coming from." And they're able to dissect pieces a little bit better, right? I like the movement of this piece because they used this. So one way that you can do it is to read a review of a runway on Vogue. Seriously, the people who are fashion journalists, they may be some of the most like grading people, but the language that they use is definitely a part of the fashion industry. So uh, understanding what they say, and just anything that you don't understand, just research it. It doesn't take that long to research words that you don't understand. What is that? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? And by a week's time, if you read an article every day and you just research things that you didn't understand, or like an artist that was referenced that you didn't know, in a week's time you'll be incredibly knowledgeable about a lot of fashion. Seriously, you'd just be like, how do I know all this stuff? Right? You would just know about it because of just the terminology that you researched. Like, I found about artists. I found out about uh, uh, techniques through that. Um, so just read a Vogue article. Like, go to download the Vogue Runway app, and any runway that kind of just even remotely resonates with you, um, read it, read the review, and then look up anything that you don't understand. I'll tell you how I did it. One of the first designers that I researched intensely was Junya Watanabe. Watanabe-san is like a very influential fashion designer, but he was one of the first designers, even before Yohji Yamamoto. Um, Watanabe was one of my biggest inspirations. And that's how I got into fashion, just studying him. And I didn't understand anything that what I was looking at. All I knew is that I had to force myself to look at things that I wouldn't wear, right? Like, I would just force myself to look at every single picture, every single thing. And Watanabe-san is incredibly reticent about speaking. He doesn't give interviews. Um, Yohji Yamamoto. That's just a Japanese thing. I'd get beat up by my Japanese family over here if I said his name. Yohji Yamamoto, right? They'd probably just be like, open the door and probably bash me on the head. But once I did that, I forced myself to look at every picture. I forced myself to try to understand the techniques. I forced myself to understand like patchwork and how it worked, and the use of different fabrics and the grades of different fabrics, and the heft of different fabrics, and the properties of different fabrics. Actually, it was Junya Watanabe who got me into the study of fabrics, and because he would use so many, right? And so that's how I normalized it. I also have I'll kind of give you a book. One second. I always show this book. This book right here, Fabrics A to Z. I remember I bought this in Los Angeles. And I'll just read fabric facts at your fingertips. That's on the back of here. And it says, with this thorough resource in hand, enter any fabric shop with confidence. There goes that word again. Fabrics A to Z includes easy to read, concise descriptions of the unique characteristics, strengths, limitations, and challenges of more than 100 fabrics, from quilting cotton to dotted Swiss to silk charmeuse to faux fur. Close-up photos of every fabric, guidelines for choosing the best tools and notions to use with every fabric, and much more, all in a portable guidebook format. So I literally like went through this piece by piece, um, piece by piece. And I went to every store to try to find every single fabric from A to Z. I didn't get to all of them because it was definitely more difficult than I had previously thought. But I really got into it, and really, I love studying this stuff because it gave me more insight. Just gave me far more insight into exactly what I was looking for. So now when I'm looking for something, I can actually name the fabric instead of naming, I'm looking for a MA jacket, right? Right? Like I'll literally like whatever piece that I'm looking for, uh, and then the fabric, and then the cut, right? So that's how I search for a particular piece. But herein lies the rub. In Japan, that kind of search is incredibly common. That's why I love living here. When you're looking for clothes in Japan, like if you go to, say, Zozo, which is the largest online fashion shop in Japan, if you go to Zozo, you can shop by fabric, you can shop by pattern, like pattern on the fabric. You can shop by the way that the neckline is. Is it a boat neckline? Is it a typical crew neckline? Is it an open collar? Is it a butterfly collar? You can shop by, of course, fabric. You can shop by width. You could shop by a sleeve length. So they have a sleeve length that's like hansode, and then like longer hansode is short sleeve. So it's like short sleeve, and then like half short sleeve, which is like goes beyond your elbow and into almost your wrist area, and then long sleeve, and then no sleeve. So I can literally search a cardigan made with linen, short sleeve, in black, long, right? Like a long length. That's how I can search for a product in Japan. Like it's hard for me to shop any other way now. Like it's super hard. Like unless I know the label and I know what it provides, it's hard for me to shop without having those parameters. If I don't know, like I need to know exactly every little thing. But Japan, this particular site allows from that. All right. So that right there just put me like just knowing that, and like learning all the terminology for fashion in Japanese, like because before I didn't know all the terminology, um, and now I do. But like learning all the fashion terminology, and learning what fabrics are out there. Like for instance, hemp and linen in Japan are part of the same group of fabrics, even though in the West we tend to separate hemp and linen. But the reason for that is because in Japanese history, linen was made with a hemp process rather than the cotton process. So like when you ask a Japanese person like the difference between hemp and linen, like in Japan, they're part of the same category, whereas outside, um, outside of that, it can be quite interesting, to say the least. Yeah, I gotta turn this a little bit. I don't know, maybe whatever. This is nice, right? So that's really the process, and hopefully as time goes on, we can get some of those kind of attributes out west with certain websites, because it really is a great process for you to find. This is how I found like 90% of new brands in Japan, is through this process. It's through this process of being able to search by fabric, search by width, search by search by, shoulder, if it's drop shoulder, if it's straight shoulder. This is how I've been able to find so many things and discover so many brands, because I was able to search by particular piece, what I was looking for. It's been the most beneficial thing while living here. And so that's my defense for it. As we move forward with this whole idea, and just to give you the kind of last few bits, as we move forward, this idea of, Japanese fashion, or just fashion in general, I hope that people will begin to have more insight, and they have more insight into themselves. Like, fashion is about you. Like I said at the onset, it's about you. Style is about you. Fashion is the business, and fashion is the clothes, but style is completely about you. And I hope through using a different culture other than probably the one that you're most familiar with. I suspect most of you are Westerners, or if you're not, sorry, I apologize. But using a different culture to kind of give you some insight into how somebody else approaches it, or how some other culture approaches it. And so a lot, just a little tangent, a lot of people ask me about, what do you think the difference are between like Chinese, Korean, or which one's better? And I'm the first person to say, I don't choose. Like, it's all up, like, for me, I chose Japan because it resonated with me the most, right? I chose. You may choose American workwear, and that might be your thing, right? You may choose UK workwear, and that might be your thing. You might choose couture, like Antwerp couture, right? So that might be your thing, and that's fine. Like, that might be something that resonates with you, and I'm cool with that. Like, I like some stuff that comes from Berlin and Belgium, and like things of that nature. Like, I like that stuff too. So it's not like I'm just strictly Japan, but I felt like Japan has been one of those places where everybody knows it's incredibly influential, and yet nobody really knows what goes on here. Right? Like, nobody really knows what goes on here. Please do a show on Japanese casual fashion for men over 40 years old. I will try to put something together. It's not, you'd probably be surprised. But yeah, like, I thought that Japan had this kind of, clout, notoriety, as it were. And that's a good question. Have I introduced U.S. influences to some of my Japanese friends? I don't feel I need to. The only thing that I've ever said to any Japanese person about whatever style you should, whatever style that they were interested in, I would always say, own it. But they always do. Like, own it. Like, know everything. Like, no, don't just pretend like hip hop fashion is like black people fashion. Like, there's more that goes into the story. Like, understand it from a personal point of view. Is like, why do you see, where does that culture come from, and not just from the music? I thought that was like, that's like one of the biggest things that I tend to, exert. 1 second, I'll be right back. Open door. Sometimes you gotta get boxes. Close. Right? So yeah, that's the story. But as far as I'm concerned, I just hope people get more insight. Uh, I'm trying to get more. No, I didn't go on a bathroom break. Actually, somebody was at my main door, so I had to pick up some stuff. But I hope you get some of that insight. I hope that you're able to kind of follow some of the things that I've been saying today. Felt like I was kind of rambling at points, but I tend to go off on tangents. But that being said, I hope that you gain more, people get more insight into this next iteration of what we're trying to do here. So let me give you the last part, what we're going to be doing in the future, and how we're going to start presenting this, so we can just be a little bit more informed about what it is that we're going to be doing. So recently I've been showing Japanese fashion kind of in a kind of like a casual a casual format. I don't age, man. I'm like immortal. In a casual format, so you just kind of like see these things. But I think that it's kind of taking away from the educational bits of it. So what we're gonna try to do is if we're gonna showcase Japanese fashion, it's gonna be kind of singular. I'm gonna be showing outfits, but I'm gonna be getting insight from the people themselves. So we're going to hopefully take an individual and get a rundown of why they chose their outfit, and how they put it together and what they were thinking about as they put those things together. Um, and so that's really, so you can just get more insight into the process, right, of how they approach it. So it becomes a more educational process. So you learn a little bit more, not just, oh my God, it just, Japanese fashion. Oh my God, it's so great. Right. It's more so, oh, so that's what they were thinking about. Oh, so that's this. Oh, so that's what, okay. All right, cool. Great. Right. So you actually learn from the people themselves. So it's going to be a little bit more focused, and for some people, I think it'll be a less creepy. Will be less creepy. They'll stop complaining about you're not consenting, right? We'll stop complaining about that. So we don't want to portray that kind of image here. Uh, so yeah, there's that. The second thing is that we're going to continue to show you places in Japan that are inspirational places. Areas that I think that you should visit on your next trip to Japan, or if you ever come to Japan. But if you want to see some places, we're definitely down for it. Just tell us where you want to go, and we'll try to film those areas. I actually got a new person that, they're not on the job yet, but I got somebody to follow me around with a camera. So that's always good work. That's always fun. So it'll be a little bit easier to do a little bit more traveling and vlogging outside in the future. And then, of course, we're going to hit you with some history and hit you with some insight into, yeah, just uh, just hit you with some history, like the typical WTHs, breaking down a brand, breaking down a movement, breaking down an idea, breaking down a little bit of history. And we're going to try to hit, all the points in Japanese fashion. And hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully. I know I'm not the best representative. Thank you, Dan. I think that was probably the best comment that anybody could make about this. I will end it with that. Dan, you have probably one of the most insightful comments, and I'll read it. Japanese people are some of the most conservatively dressed people in the world. Social media has skewed people's perception because it's such a strong, isolated showcase, and I have to agree with that. For the most part, yeah. But Harajuku is one of those places where you could see some stuff. Minami Aoyama is also another place. Shinjuku, every now and then. But they're not as crazy as people think that they are. And that's really something that I really want to hit the nail in. It's about effortlessness. It's not about craziness. It's not about this overt, ridiculous showcase. It's about smartly dressed people, and why so many of them are smartly dressed. And that's really the goal here. And hopefully we can do that. Yeah, but like I said, more of that, more WTH, and we also have a live show coming on But I did have to take a break. I was just not in the right state of mind after this recent just I'm gonna just be real with you guys. I really don't like short form content that much because it really doesn't convey everything that I'm trying to do or what we're trying to do. So it, you know, if a short form content kind of thing blows up, then people get like the wrong idea of what was meant by this, what was meant by, you know, it was really a learning process how I kind of like approach everything. And so short form content, that kind of idea gets lost and people just have these knee-jerk reactions. It's not something that I enjoy. I really don't like it, but it's something that we have to employ. So bear with me and the rest of the team as we go forward in this process. That being said, if you want to know any more content or if you want any more insight, please, if you just want to support us, patreon.com/thecasual. We'll get you access to our private Discord, people talking about fashion, our brand series class, which we've started up again. We also have a webinar every month. So yeah, if that's up your alley, you feel like doing that, fantastic. If not, that's fine. Being a subscriber definitely helps as well. But I hope we can give something to everybody that, you know, walks by the channel. That being said, I got to get out of here. Keep it locked right here for all of your info on international fashion culture and business from Tokyo. It's your boy. Keep it casual. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. And I will see you guys in a minute. In a minute. Un momento. Right? See you guys. Peace.